Amara Okonkwo never imagined her life would come to this. 30 years old, 8 years of marriage, and not a single day without the weight of shame pressing against her chest. Barren, that's what they called her. That's what her husband Kenneth whispered to his family when he thought she couldn't hear. That's what his new wife would never be. She cleaned houses now, rich people's houses, people who had everything she'd ever wanted: love, children, futures that stretched beyond the next humiliation. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. She entered Daniel Okori's bedroom with her usual cleaning supplies, her mind already planning the day's tasks. The bed was a mess, sheets tangled, pillows scattered, evidence of another one of his nights. Daniel was a wealthy bachelor, the kind of man who moved through women the way others moved through seasons. His sister Linda had hired Amara months ago, warning her not to mind her brother's lifestyle. Amara had nodded. She needed the job. She had no room to judge. But that morning, as she reached to strip the bed, something caught her eye. A used condom on the nightstand. Carelessly discarded, forgotten. Her hand froze mid-reach. For a long moment, she simply stared at it. Her practical mind told her to throw it away and move on. But something else stirred inside her. Something desperate. Something that had been growing for 8 years. A thought. Terrible. Impossible. Unthinkable. What if? Her hands trembled as she picked it up with a tissue. She looked around the empty apartment, heart pounding. This was insane. This was criminal. This was her only chance. She tucked it in for her apron pocket and finished cleaning the room as if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. In that single moment, Amara Okonkwo had made a choice that would change 3 lives forever. That night, alone in her small, modest room, she sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the small, concealed package. In her other hand, she held her wedding photo, her and Kenneth on their wedding day, both so young, both so hopeful. She'd been 18, a virgin, pure, everything a good wife should be. But 8 years later, she'd been thrown out like garbage, replaced by a younger woman who could give him what Amara's body refused to provide. Her hand moved to her flat stomach. For 8 years she'd prayed, visited every doctor, tried every remedy. Nothing worked. The problem wasn't clear. Maybe her, maybe him, maybe both. But Kenneth's family had decided. She was the curse. She was the barren woman. And now she had a choice. A terrible, desperate choice. She did it. With shaking hands and silent prayers for forgiveness, she did the unthinkable. And then she waited. 6 weeks later, Amara stood in her small shared apartment kitchen, gripping the sink as nausea overwhelmed her. Her friend Grace rushed to her side. "Amara, what's wrong? You've been sick for days." Amara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, because she knew, even before the test, even before the confirmation, she knew. Grace helped her to sit down, brought her water, watched with growing concern as Amara's hand shook holding the glass. "I need to tell you something," Amara whispered. "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." Grace's face exploded with joy. "What? Amara, that's wonderful! Oh my God, after all these years! Have you told Kenneth? He'll take you back. It's not Kenneth's baby." The joy died. Grace stared at her, confusion spreading across her features. "Then whose?" "Daniel's." Silence, heavy and terrible. "Daniel? Our employer, Daniel? But you said you never— Amara, what did you do?" And so Amara confessed the whole terrible story, the condom, the desperation, the artificial insemination she'd done herself in a moment of madness. Grace listened with growing horror. When Amara finished, Grace stood and paced, hands on her head. "Do you realize what you've done? This is theft. This is—" I know, but Grace, please, please don't tell anyone. I just needed one chance to be a mother. I'll raise this baby alone. Daniel never has to know." Grace looked at her friend, desperate, broken, clinging to the only hope she'd had in 8 years. "I won't tell," Grace said finally. "But Amara, this secret, that's going to destroy you." It took 3 months for the secret to break. Grace couldn't keep it. The weight was too heavy, the guilt too strong. When she saw Daniel with another woman, laughing, careless, treating women like objects, something in her snapped. He needed to take responsibility. She confronted him one afternoon in his luxury apartment. "You got my friend pregnant." Daniel looked up from his phone, confused. "What? Who's your friend?" "Amara, the woman you sleep with and then throw away like garbage." His face shifted from confusion to anger. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never touched your friend. She's not even my type." "Liar! She's pregnant with your child." "That's impossible." But Grace was relentless. She demanded a DNA test, threatened to go to the police, to ruin his reputation. Daniel's sister Linda got involved, trying to calm the situation. And Daniel, confident in his innocence, agreed. "Fine, we'll do your DNA test, and when it proves I'm not the father, you both will apologize." The first test came back positive, 99.9% probability of paternity. Daniel stared at the paper, his world tilting. "This is wrong. This has to be wrong." "How is it wrong?" Grace demanded. 3 different hospitals, 3 different tests, all say the same thing." But Daniel couldn't remember. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember sleeping with Amara. He drank, yes. He partied, yes. But he would remember her, wouldn't he? His sister Linda watched him spiral. "Jerry," she said quietly, using his nickname, "maybe you were drunk. Maybe you don't remember." "I would remember," he insisted, but doubt crept in. Weeks passed. Daniel refused to acknowledge the pregnancy, refused to help. His anger at being trapped, at being deceived, even if he couldn't remember how, consumed him. And then Amara went into labor. The baby was born on Tuesday, a boy. Perfect, beautiful, everything Amara had dreamed of for 8 years. For 6 hours she held him and wept with joy. And then the doctors came with grave faces. "There's a complication. The baby needs a blood transfusion. Your blood type makes you ineligible to donate, especially so soon after delivery. We need the father." Amara's world stopped. Grace tried to donate, wrong blood type. The baby's condition worsened. Amara sat in that hospital bed, holding her dying child, and knew she had one choice left, the choice she'd been running from for 9 months. She had to call Daniel. Her hand shook as she dialed. The phone rang and rang. "Hello?" "Daniel," her voice cracked. "Please, I need help. The baby, he's dying. He needs blood. Please, I'm begging you." There was a long silence. "Why should I help you?" His voice was cold. "You've done nothing but lie to me." I know, but please, he's innocent. He's dying. Please." Another silence. Then, "I'll think about it." The line went dead. Amara collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Her baby was dying, and the man who could save him hated her. An hour later, Daniel arrived at the hospital. His sister Linda had convinced him. "That baby is innocent," she said. "Whatever happened between you, that child doesn't deserve to die." Daniel sat in the donation chair, watching his blood flow into the bag. Through the window, he could see Amara in the corridor, hands clasped in prayer, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, he saw her not as a liar, not as a schemer, but as a terrified mother watching her child die. Something in his chest tightened. When the donation was complete, the nurse told him the transfusion was successful. The baby would live. Daniel stood to leave, but something stopped him. Maybe it was Linda's words. Maybe it was the look on Amara's face. Maybe it was the tiny life he'd just saved. He walked to her hospital room instead. Amara looked up as he entered, fear and gratitude warring on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving him." Daniel said nothing. He walked to the bassinet and looked down at the sleeping baby. Small, fragile, alive because of him. I need to know the truth, he said quietly, all of it. And so Amara told him everything, the used condom, the desperate act, the artificial insemination she'd done herself in a moment of madness. Daniel listened with shock, horror, disgust, and finally, understanding. You stole my sperm, he said, his voice hollow. Yes. You got yourself pregnant without my consent. Yes. Do you understand what you did? The violation? Yes, she whispered, tears streaming. Yes, I understand. I am a terrible person. I did a terrible thing. But I was desperate. 8 years of marriage and I couldn't give my husband a child. He threw me out. I just wanted one chance to be a mother. Daniel stared at her, at this broken woman who'd committed an unthinkable act out of desperation so deep it had driven her to madness. You could go to jail for this, he said. I know. I should call the police right now. I know. He looked back at the baby, his son, because that's what the DNA test said. This was his child, a child he never wanted, never planned for, never even participated in creating, but a child nonetheless. I'm not going to call the police, he said finally. Amara's head snapped up. But you will never, ever do anything like this again to anyone. Do you understand? Yes. And you will get help. Therapy, whatever you need to process what drove you to this. Yes. Daniel took a breath. I'll support the baby, financially, 100,000 naira every month. I'll also set up a business for you so you can support yourself. But Eva, she looked at him, tears still flowing. Don't ever ask me for more than that. I need time to process this. What you did was wrong, deeply wrong. But that baby is innocent, and he deserves a chance. Amara nodded, unable to speak. Daniel looked at the baby one more time, then left without another word. Months passed. True to his word, Daniel sent money every month. He even helped Amara set up a small food business, but he kept his distance. The violation was too fresh, the anger too raw. Until one day, his sister called. Jerry, I saw that woman, Amara. She was selling food in the hot sun, and she had the baby strapped to her back. It broke my heart. Something in Daniel's chest twisted. Despite everything, despite the anger and the violation, he couldn't shake the image of his son strapped to his mother's back while she struggled to survive. He started visiting, just to check on the baby, he told himself. But slowly something shifted. He saw how hard Amara worked, how she never asked for more than he'd offered, how she raised their son with love and dignity despite her circumstances. He saw the baby grow, saw his own features in the small face, felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest when the baby smiled at him. One afternoon, he took Amara and the baby to the park. Grace came along, watching from a distance with tears of approval. He has your smile, Amara said softly as Daniel held their son. He has your determination, Daniel replied. They walked in silence for a moment, the baby between them creating a bridge neither had expected. I'm sorry, Amara said suddenly. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I am truly sorry for what I did. It was wrong, criminal, unforgivable. You had every right to walk away. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. What you did was unforgivable, he agreed. But somehow I'm finding a way to forgive anyway. Not because you deserve it, but because he does. He looked down at their son, peaceful in his arms. He deserves a father who chooses to be present, who chooses to love him,
even if the circumstances of his birth were complicated. Amara's tears fell freely now. "Thank you," she whispered. They walked together through the park, three people bound by trauma, violation, desperation, and somehow, against all odds, a beginning of healing. The road ahead would be long, trust would take years to build, the violation would never be forgotten. But in that moment, under the afternoon sun, with an innocent child between them, two broken people found something neither expected: a second chance. Not for romance, not for forgetting, but for choosing, despite everything, to do right by the life that had been stolen into existence. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some have complicated ones. And sometimes that's enough.